Welcome to Bulls and Reds Advent Calendar. Let's see what's behind today's door.
So, what's today? December 19th.
Already?
Thursday.
Ooh.
Christmas Eve is approaching faster and faster.
So surprising.
Oh, come on,
Unexpected.
So, my friend Mario, what do we have in our little Advent calendar today?
Well, today we thought we're going to be talking about the home of RB Leipzig. So we're going to be talking about the stadium of RB Leipzig because I think it's quite unique. And then Richard will explain a little bit later why it is unique. You might have heard the name Zentralstadion before. Then everybody lives here and everybody's gone to Leipzig and see the matches. They know about the Zentralstadion, but people living further afield might not be 100% aware of it. Now, the Zentralstadion is the original stadium of Leipzig, where RB Leipzig is playing at the moment. And it is quite old. It was built in 1955, and it's actually made out of rubbles from World War II. Now, of course, Leipzig suffered a lot of destruction during World War II, and it was decided to use those rubbles to build the stadium with that. But the plans to build that stadium go back way further. They reach into the 1930s, because then it was planned that Leipzig should receive a large stadium with a capacity of 100,000 spectators. And it was intended that after the Olympic Games in 1936, which took place in Berlin, we all know that propaganda show of the Nazis, it was planned that in 1939 or 1940, things would get going in terms of building that stadium. And the architect who designed the Olympic Stadium Berlin also designed plans for that stadium Leipzig. And of course, there was that little matter of World War II, which prevented that. But funny enough, not the Nazis built the stadium, it was the communists who built the stadium, and a lot of 180,000 volunteers. Now, the interesting thing is, parts of the stadium still exist today, because the embankment that was built out of the rubble of World War II is about 900 meters long. It's 23 meters high, and those 23 meters we still have to climb up today. Of course, there's stairs to get into the new stadium. But those 23 meters took you to the embankment, which was also 100 meters wide, and you were at the top of the stadium. And if you walk down long flights of stairs, you would reach the seats. There was no roof over the stadium. Everything was open, and the benches were quite unique because it wasn't wood on what you were sitting. It was some sort of plastic fiberboard material which was pressed together, and I think that was also used for the outer body of the Trabant, and it had the same color. It was that brown, but people were able to destroy that. But the capacity of 100,000 people would look down to a field surrounded by track and field, so it was used for track and field events as well. And then of course there was a football field. It is worth noting that the main building that is there at the entrance today outside of the stadium is still there, and that was the original part, and that actually led into the stadium. Now that has changed a little bit nowadays, and the embankment also had from 1977 onwards, 4 big tall floodlights, and they were quite iconic. And even nowadays you can actually see where they were positioned if you walk around the stadium. That stadium was central for East Germany, for the East German national team. The more important games were actually played there. I remember as a child, I attended one of the games of the German Democratic Republic. It was a hot summer. It was a friendly versus Greece. It ended 0-0, and it was bloody boring. That's what I remember. I never seen the stadium at a full capacity. It was mostly at a full capacity when they had those sports Spartakiade events. It was more propaganda, and it showed off the beautiful life in East Germany. And I'm sure, Richard, you remember that. I remember it so vividly. That was but the only times when it sold out. Now, the very first football game that took place, that was after completion in 1956, took place on the 4th of August, and it did not include a team from Leipzig. It was the, at the time, reigning East German champion called SC Wismut Karl-Marxstadt. I'm not sure, well, Chemnitz called today. The town is called Chemnitz today. I'm not sure if that was our already at the time. They only played in Karl-Marxstadt. And they faced the Hungarian champion, Honvéd Budapest, lost 3-1. But they had full capacity. And there was also a match of East Germany playing, I think, the Czech Republic, where they had 110,000 people in there as well. And a famous match, Erster FC Lok Leipzig, when they played SSC Neapel with Diego Maradona in the mid-80s. And of course, semi-final, Cup of Winners, Lokomotiv Leipzig played Girondins Bordeaux, and they did beat them in penalty shootout and went on to the finals. René Müller, the goalie, converting that last penalty. So it is really famous for East Germany. But then unification came and things changed, didn't they? Richard, I know you were more involved than me. I just want to mention one more thing. I do remember the Zentralstadion as well for the clashes between Chemie Leipzig and Lok Leipzig. And at the time, the crowd was, usually when you went to these games for East German football, it was about 15,000 people, maybe 20, and that was a lot already. But there, they were about 35,000, and that felt like a Bundesliga match because we would watch the Sportschau as well, the West German Bundesliga on TV, of West German TV. And it felt, because it was such an intense match, there was a lot of noise in there, and I remember that. But as I said, Richard, things changed with unification, so I think at the time, you got more involved.
Yeah, after unification, the VfB Leipzig, who was re-established out of the Erste FC Lok Leipzig, and they played some years in the Bundesliga, and they played in the Zentralstadion, but when they were relegated in 1994, they moved to the east of Leipzig to the Bruno-Plache-Stadion, and after that, this stadium was just not used by any professional sports, but it was used quite often for track and field tournaments, and I participated in quite a lot of them. And also we had training sessions in the stadium, and a huge part of our training was to running up the stairs from this track and field running track up to the whole to this whole thing where the floodlights were placed. And the stairs were not on the same height, so
they were longer.
The stairs in the lower tier was quite small.
Okay.
And the more further you moved up, the more you need to lift your knee to take the next step, and it was just so exhausting, and really my legs were hurting as hell. And this 900 meters circle, on this embankment. There was a regular running track for just warming up. So one round was 900 meters, and it was
perfect.
quite exhausting as well. And but as the rumors started, or the plans started from the DFB, their place a bid for the 2006 World Cup in Germany, the at that time president of the DFB, of the Deutscher Fußballbund, Egidius Braun, had made a statement that he was only willing to place a bid at the FIFA if there was one city in the former GR, so in East Germany, with a stadium. And so there was really not any other stadium available or, imaginable in the East Germany. And especially if you bear in mind that the Leipzig was the city where the DFB was founded. So the decision to build a new stadium inside the Zentralstadion was made in the late 90s, and then our Red Bull Arena, as nearly as it's now, was built into this, and but we have to climb up the 23 meters nevertheless. And if you look at this thing now, I mean, when it was ready, it was really beautiful, and we all enjoyed it. And I remember the very first match that was played, and it was FC Sachsen Leipzig versus the second squad of Borussia Dortmund. It was in March 2004. I have been there alongside 28,000 other people. FC Sachsen lost 0-1, and so in hindsight, it felt like it was the beginning of the end of this club.
Okay.
in this oversized stadium, and everyone was, hey, that's a nice stadium, and now a bright future is ahead of us. And then last a game where it was pretty much the worst team for the whole 90 minutes versus the second quarter from the Bundesliga team, and it was like, okay, maybe we have a lot of work to do, and no one was able to get this work done. So anyway, back to our stadium. But if you look back now, how it was constructed in the early 2000s and how it was used for the World Cup, and compare it to what Red Bull has done to the stadium when they bought it in 2020 and then put in a lot of money to refurbish and modernize it, and this is such a huge difference now. So you if you join one of our games now, you will recognize the huge glass walls. Especially in the curves behind the A and D sector, and those glass walls hadn't been there after the reopening in 2004, and it was so windy all the time. The stadium was always windy, and it is always cold as hell, even in October, because of this cold wind, but all the time. And now it feels like a little bit more as if you are going into a building, and into inside of a building, and I enjoyed it pretty much. And they were building more stairs and more ways into the stadium, and more food court and all those stuff, and more restrooms. And now it feels like, okay, this is a Bundesliga worthy stadium. And it just was not in this fashion until the year of 2019. Yes, so it's a calendar door. So yeah, I think we shouldn't do it for too long now. I think it's quite interesting. So everyone outside this world who's listening to us, come to the city. I think this stadium with a unique form, a unique history, and it's there are so many stadiums you cannot, that are not distinguishable from each other. If you look into the Schau uns an Reisen Arena in Freiburg, it seems like it's the same stadium that's built in Rostock and in Aachen and in Mainz and in Paderborn. So, but if you look at the stadium in Leipzig, you will recognize it. You will recognize, okay, this thing is Leipzig, because a new stadium inside an old stadium, no one else in the world.
And from the top of the embankment, you have a beautiful view onto the city center or the skyline. Well, the attractions of Leipzig as well. And it's just beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed our little story about the stadium inside of a stadium.